Right now, I want to talk about by-elections, and I also want to talk about whistleblowing in politics, which apparently is starting to have some impact. And to do that, we're pleased to welcome back to the program John Best. John is the publisher of the Bay Observer, watching things political in this area. John, thanks for the time. Good to have you with us today.
Good to be with you, Bill.
John, I'll get into the by-election in just a second, but I want to talk about the piece that you guys did in the Bay Observer about whistleblowing at Hamilton City Hall. And this was supposed to be to facilitate those who see something that's wrong. Maybe it could be political, could be, I don't know what else, what the parameters are. There wasn't much of an uptake on it, and a lot of people were rather skeptical about it. But you've done a follow-up on this, and it seems to be, as you mentioned in the piece, going on in record numbers now.
Yeah, they're quite happy with the program, according to Charles Brown, the Auditor General. They say they just came off the best year they've had, which is something in the area of, I think, 120 complaints, and they sifted through them. And as I said in the story, if it was baseball, they're batting .320, which isn't bad. So roughly a third of the whistleblower complaints that they received actually bore fruit and resulted in, either finding out and out wrongdoing or incompetence or waste. So yeah, it looks like the program's working pretty well.
So there was a reticence in the first part of this, I guess, because some people don't want to come forward. They don't want to be singled out. They don't want to, they are concerned, as we heard anyway, about repercussions on this. Should I really say something, or should I just bury my head in the sand and pretend nothing's going on? Have you noticed any discernible difference as to why the climate might have changed and people seem more willing to partake in this process?
Well, I think it's just the nature of the way they established the process. It's totally anonymous. I think these people always did want to squeal, but, there was concern about making formal complaints and having to stand behind what you filed. I mean, it's pretty much human nature. If your boss is behaving, let's say, unethically or stupidly, and you have to sort of go on the record to call that out, chances are at the end of the day, you're going to say to hell with it. It's just too much risk and there will be repercussions. So this system allows for anonymous reporting. In fact, that is the system. It's totally anonymous. And as a result, more people are coming forward. It's a corporation with 8,000 employees. And, when you get 8,000 people, you're going to get some bad apples. That's just the way it is by the law of averages.
Okay, but when a complaint is filed, who does the investigation and who decides what to do about the information that they gather?
It's all handled by the Auditor General's office, from what I can see. And presumably if a complaint came in, a whistleblower complaint came into the auditor that fell outside of his area, that he may choose to pass that on to somebody who is responsible. But this is mainly about waste, money being waste, time theft. So there are all items that have to do basically with wasting or misallocating money. So it's more or less handled by the Auditor General's office.
The reason I'm asking is because I think one of the more famous or maybe infamous cases of this occurred some years ago with the Public Works Department. And you talked about, time theft and things of this nature, where a number of employees were accused of time theft, of not punching in when they should have, of sitting around doing nothing, of selling material. I think it was tar in this particular case. It was being used to patch up roads for private purposes. A number of people got fired as a result of that investigation, as thorough as it might have been. But that was not the end of it. That's really the beginning of it. Legal action ensued, and my understanding is I think at the end of the day, most of them were hired back, and it did not go well. I assume they've smoothed this process out.
Yeah, they were all typically union members, and they managed to get reinstated, I think almost every one of them. But those people have to look at themselves in the mirror, their family. How would you be proud of your dad if he was a time thief? And they were off the job for an extended period of time before the reversal of the ruling came in. So, That's unfortunate. I think when you behave the way these guys did, you remember the joke that was going around was something like what's green and white and sleeps for, and it was a City of Hamilton crew cab. So there was a lot of notoriety about that, and we didn't see in this report any particular instances of time theft because that is a slippery slope, having had that experience a few years ago.
Yeah, you just wonder about, the follow through and what's going to happen as a result of that. And I know I heard from a lot of those people and they were pretty bitter about it. And we talked to the then city manager and the head of that particular, the politician that had that committee, and they were adamant about it. And you make a valid point though. They were reinstated. I don't think anybody ever said, no, don't worry about it. Nothing really happened here. They just reinstated them for, I guess, legal reasons. So it sounds as if it's a much better process now. Let's swing over to the by-election. Just to remind people, in the last provincial election in October in Hamilton Centre, Andrea Horwath was the MPP, and of course she was the leader of the provincial party. She she won her seat certainly, but the NDP did not do well in that election. Doug Ford was reelected, so she stepped down. Boy, I know a lot. I'm bringing people up to speed on this, John, because it's been so long. I'm sure a lot of people forgot. This was the last day that they was eligible for them to call it. Why did they wait so long for a government to call an election like this?
I'm just guessing, Bill, but it seems to me that the Conservatives are making a real effort to capture this seat. It seems counterintuitive to think of a Conservative winning in Hamilton Centre. The seat has been largely NDP since the 90s. But, with Andrea out, it opens up the seat like it's never been opened up before. And the Conservatives have nominated a police officer who, on the face of it, you say, oh, well, a cop, in a riding like Hamilton Centre hasn't got much of a chance. But this Pete Weisner has got quite an interesting resume. He's done a lot of community outreach work, a lot of street level one-on-one with disadvantaged people. So he's not your usual. I heard him described by somebody who spent some time with him recently as kind of a red Tory. So he's an interesting character. And I'm also told that money is no problem in terms of that campaign. I think we've already seen it. He ran some newspaper ads before the writ was even dropped. And, normally that's a sign that the war chest is full. The election, Bill, is less than, it's 27 days from today. So it's going to be a quick campaign. And some strong candidates there. Let's face it. Deirdre Pike, she's going to work hard. I think if there's a negative, it's going to be simply that the party has no leader. That's going to be a disadvantage. She only got about 3,500 votes last time, but that was the anti-Kathleen Wynne election where there was nobody was going to win at that time. And plus, of course, she was running against Andrea Horwath. So that was a bit of a lost cause. So she'll do better, I'm sure. And then you've got Sarah Jama. She's going to be interesting. She'll have, all the NDP boots on the ground. Plus, I would say that Andrea would have left that riding association in fairly good shape financially. So she's going to be able to put on a good show. Her issue about defunding the police and the trouble she had where she and others were arrested and then they agreed to a peace bond, that is going to be an issue. It's not going to go away.
Especially since one of the candidates she's running against is a police officer.
Well, and I'm told that it was his foot that she ran over with the wheelchair. So I hope it doesn't get too personal, but, it's going to be an interesting campaign, Bill. We've got, some strength at all three levels. There's a Green candidate as well running. 27 days, I think a lot of it's going to have to do with I think this is one where the air war could be important. There's quite a few signs up in the ward in the riding already, and so it's good. going to be an interesting election, given for the first time that I can remember that the Conservative at least will be a contender.
And that's unusual. I was just trying to think of, you mentioned about how long this has been an NDP seat, both, well, federally to a certain extent, but certainly provincially. Andrea Horwath held it for a number of years. It was David Christopherson that held it before her, and until David moved on to federal politics. And I'm just trying to, I'm just going through my mind's eye here, but I can't think of the last time a Conservative held that seat in the central city. This is Hamilton Center, of course. For those outside the city, it's one of the older sections of town. It's right downtown, and it stretches essentially from the mountain brow all the way to the bay. And it's characteristic. I mean, there's some heavy industry at one end of it. There's a real concern about poverty, about transient populations and things of this nature. And that also one of the areas with one of the lowest voter turnouts in this area. So you add that factor with the fact that it's a by-election, and those by-elections usually have low turnout. You got to wonder how much effort and how many votes is it going to take to win this thing.
Well, that's right. I mean, you could win it with 4,000 or 5,000 votes. The other thing that could be an issue in that race is the safe injection site that the council just approved, which is going to be in the ward. And, that is, for that to actually come to reality, it requires approval by the province and the feds. I think the feds put up the money, and the feds, I guess, authorize what would otherwise be the illegal use of drugs. So I think that's their role. The province has to put up the money to operate the thing. And so that could be that could be an issue, even though it's not specifically on the ballot. But there's a lot of churn in that riding right now. The Walter Furlan, who ran against unsuccessfully ran against the councillor Narinder Nan, he's leading a group of people that are opposed to that injection site, which is going to be right next to the Dairy Queen on Barton. And it's close to, St. Anne's School. He's probably going to work with the Conservative candidate. And, he didn't win at the municipal level, but he's got a team that if he put it to the service of one of the candidates, it could be helpful from a boots on the ground perspective.
And just to put this in perspective, as I say, I don't remember the last time a PC candidate actually won. I guess federally some time ago as well, but I don't know that too many people gave Neil Lumsden much of a chance in Hamilton East Stony Creek, which is the riding right next door to that, and he won, and of course he's in cabinet now in the Ford government. I don't know if there's a trend going on. I mentioned a transient population in that ward, but there's also a lot of new Hamiltonians that live in that ward too, aren't there, John? That
Yes.
Have moved in here. They maybe bought condos downtown, et cetera. So there could be a shift in attitude there.
Yeah, I think it's a transitional ward. I think it still largely is as you described it, and it's certainly one of the highest poverty levels and one of the highest public health concern wards. But it is changing. When the LRT is built, it's going to result in a whole raft of condos. Right now, most of the condos are concentrated downtown, but that's going to extend more easterly once the LRT becomes a reality. And you're going to see, as you are everywhere in Hamilton, you're going to see more Toronto people moving into Hamilton. And it'd be interesting to know what their political persuasion is. I don't think there'll be a factor just yet, but it's coming for sure.
John Best of the Bay Observer. John, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for this today. Have a great Family Day weekend. We'll talk again soon.